news that you've been waiting for. The world's top valuation guru will tell you exactly what has happened. And he joins us from New York in a moment. Plus, of course, all that's happened in Parliament where Rahul Gandhi has taken on Prime Minister Modi. Let's bring you the headlines. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi fires his most direct attack yet at Prime Minister Modi over the Adani share crisis. Questions the link between the industrialist and Prime Minister Modi. Claims undue favours were given to him by the Prime Minister for several projects. Modi ministers and the BJP dub Rahul Gandhi a loose cannon after he alleges a link between the Prime Minister and Gautam Adani. War of words continues in Parliament. Rahul Gandhi also calls the UP Chief Minister a thug, accuses the BJP of indulging in adharma. Yogi Adityanath hits back, accuses the Congress of playing with Hindu faith. Victoria Gauri takes oath as Madras High Court judge amidst controversy. Top court dismisses plea against her elevation, says stalling her promotion will be disrespecting the collegium. Gujarat High Court suspends life sentence of former BJP MP Dinu Solanki's nephew convicted of murdering an RTI activist Amit Jetwa outside court premises in 2010. Rift grows in the Maharashtra Congress as the state's head Balasaheb Thorat quits, blames the state's president Nana Patole's anger towards him in a letter to Mallikarjun Kharge. Over 5,000 dead in the Turkey-Syria earthquakes. India sends relief and aid. NDRF teams dispatched to Turkey. Former Pakistan cricketer Javed Miandad launches a shocking anti-India tirade, says Bhaad mein jaye India, as BCCI refuses to go to Pakistan for the Asia Cup. And RBI's Monetary Policy Committee starts deliberations amidst murmurs of a pause in the policy repo rate. The street believes a 25 basis point rate hike is on the cards.
Adani versus Hindenburg rocks Parliament.
ये जो हजारों करोड़ रुपया ये शेल कंपनीज हिंदुस्तान में भेज रही हैं, ये किसका पैसा है? और क्या ये काम अडानी जी फ्री में कर रहे हैं?
अडानी को ऑस्ट्रेलिया में माइंस मिला, इस सरकार ने दिया सर, इसने मदद किया, मनमोहन सिंह जी की सरकार ने मदद किया, और यदि हिम्मत है तो रिट्रैक्ट करें।
He portrays that India is the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister is him. He makes it appear to the world that he is the remote control behind the Prime Minister, and by obliging him, will be obliging the Prime Minister.
The real story behind the numbers. Is the Adani Group a con job? Should Adani Group be investigated? Did Adani Group manipulate stock prices? World's top valuation guru exclusive.
That's right. Over the last few days, there has been a lot of political noise over the Adani affair. In fact, today in Parliament, the debate over the motion of thanks to the President's address was dominated by the Adani issue. Now, amidst the noise, you, the viewer, perhaps are wondering, where does the truth lie? What exactly has happened over the last few weeks? What lies ahead? Particularly the business financial maze that has been created. Which is why we thought tonight we'll bring you first, before we go to the politicians, one of the world's leading equity valuation and business finance experts, Professor Aswath Damodaran, joins me from the Stern Business School of New York University. Appreciate your joining us, Professor Damodaran, taking the time off. My first question, and this is something everyone is asking. The Hindenburg research report says Adani is the biggest con in history. What do you think? You've gone and detailed it in a fantastic blog post. Now share your views with our viewers. Do you think that Adani is a con or not?
I think that's hyperbole. I mean, a con to me is something where there's no substance. A Ponzi scheme is a con. There's nothing there. The entire objective is to fool people, separate them from their money, and leave them poor. And I don't think Adani fits that description. I think it has too much substance as a company to be a con. And I think, in a sense, what Adani has done in the interests of preserving control has fed into the Hindenburg reports. Okay, so the reason people are willing to listen is because of some of the actions that Adani has taken, not so much because they wanted to con people, but because they were so interested in preserving control at the company. It's sometimes in their zeal to keep control at companies, I think family groups get a little carried away. They take actions that are not about ripping other people off. It's about preserving control. And when I look at Adani's actions, even if everything in the Hindenburg report is true, and it might not or might not be, it could still be contested, what I see is the picture of a company that is so focused on family group members keeping control that it's probably cut corners, taken decisions that are designed to advance it on that objective. But to call it a con, I think, it's hyperbole. So short sellers do it all the time. I'm not surprised the Hindenburg report does this, because I've seen short reports before. They have to catch your attention, and it did, right? And you see that headline, you say, oh, there must be something here that is essentially designed to rip off people, so let me go see what it is.
So the first answer to the FAQ, you're saying the Hindenburg report is hyperbole when it says Adani Group is a con job, but the group could have cut corners in your view. Let's turn to the second most frequently answered question, Professor Damodaran. The most serious allegation in that report was of stock manipulation, of using inter-party, inter-family transactions to perhaps make the company look more creditworthy, and importantly, create a maze of shell companies controlled by family members and thereby, in a way, engaging possibly in round-tripping and a violation of rules. Do you believe that these allegations in the report are serious enough to merit a proper investigation?
See, I don't know. The web of shell companies, it's unlikely that the Hindenburg report made it out of thin air. Because this is, I mean, in fact, as I read the Hindenburg report, I went back and checked prior reports in the Indian press. Almost everything in that report is, in a sense, almost in the public domain. Nothing there was something people say, I'd never heard of that before. There are 6,300 companies in Mauritius. It's a company with $11.5 billion GDP. You're saying, what the heck are 6,300 companies doing in there? This is a place where Indian businesses go, and we can debate that this is moral or ethical, or the Indian government knows this, right? It's been trying to crack down on it. So is it possible that the Adani Group has 38 shell companies in Mauritius? Yes. That part of it. So even if that allegation is right, let's talk about the price manipulation part. This is the part that I don't get. This is not a small company. It's a company with small float, but it's a company whose market cap increased by $100 billion. To do that, you need a lot of trading. So what I was looking for in the report is show me the evidence of trading jumping tenfold. In the last 18 months, the price was going up. Maybe you have some evidence that shows me that the trading volume was 20 times higher than before. I didn't see that evidence. Almost all the evidence is about shell companies that are essentially Adani shells that hold shares in the company. Here's the part of the report that I'm willing to believe. That 75% threshold, that's a listing requirement to be I am willing to believe that Adani has played fast and loose with that rule. Mm-hmm. This is a control fixation. You know what? You can control a company with 70%. But somehow they feel the urge to almost have complete control of the company. So am I willing to believe that that part of the allegation is true, that they might have been at 76% and they used it, the shell company started? Absolutely. That's not a price manipulation argument. That's a rule-breaking argument. We could talk about what the penalty for that should be. Mm-hmm. So it's a mix of serious stuff with not so serious stuff with... And a hearsay is the best way I can describe some of this stuff. Somebody told the group that somebody had told them that there were crooked things going on. This could never be accepted in a court of law. But when you're a short seller, you can talk about guilt by association. Like, and you see that in the report, right? The brother, cousin, somebody else who's done something wrong, and the Adani group has connections to them. So by guilt by association, it must be the sins of the Adani company too. So as I read the report, there's a lot of bullet points there where I look and say, I'm not sure what that tells me about the company, and I'm not sure that that's uncommon. That is that uncommon with an Indian business to begin with. Now we can talk about whether that's good or bad. That so many Indian companies follow these practices, but I have a feeling that the Adani group has been caught in a web of their own making. That desire for control has led them to cut corners on things, and that's now going to come back, and it's already haunting them because a short seller has taken those things and said this must mean, because the two biggest allegations to me were the price manipulation, which is serious, and the other is that they're manipulating the financials of the underlying companies, make the company look more, their earnings manipulation, that the revenues are being pumped up. And that part I find puzzling, because if they're manipulating earnings, they're doing an awfully bad job of it, because Adani companies are not profitable. Their margins are tiny, they're struggling to make money. So if you're manipulating earnings, I'd have expected you to do a much better job and report 10% margins, not 3.6% margins.
So cut corners is the word that you've used, which you believe that the report seems to suggest. Let's then talk about that. Given the manner in which this has played out, should the regulator have intervened earlier when the stocks seem to be rising to abnormally high levels? Does this show somewhere that the regulator has not done enough to investigate or inquire into some of the troubling issues that are being raised only now?
Probably. But I think it's less to do with corruption and politics and more to do with inertia and indifference. I mean, I know how regulators work. They're risk averse, and especially in India, if you're a regulator, you want to make sure you don't take an action where you face the downside. So it's almost a system that's tilted towards inaction. So if there's a fault here, it's because we've designed a system where we tied the hands of regulators, and it's easy to pick on them and say, you should have done this, you should have done that. But if they get the downside of their actions, why would you ever expect them to go out of the way? So they're going to take narrow views of the rules because that's the safest place for them to be. So I think that's a reflection of how Indian regulation works and how the system is set up to punish people who go out of their way to try to be creative and try to catch companies. They get punished. So why would you ever go out of your way to do it? You're going to check the box and say, you know what, they checked the box. It's not my fault. So I attribute that more to indifference and inertia than to any degree of corruption. I could be completely wrong on this one, but I don't think that it was corruption or politics that was the driving force. It might have contributed that they have connections. But I think it's less that and more the indifference and inertia that is so much at the heart of Indian regulation.
I'm going to come to those political connections, Professor, later, but you're saying inertia or indifference on the part of the regulator prima facie. The other big question, do you see Gautam Adani company's high debt as a concern or as a normal given the infrastructure areas in which he has bet big on? Is that something that should concern people who've invested in Adani companies or are leveraged to Adani?
It's normal and it's concerning. They're not either or, right? I mean, in a sense, infrastructure companies always borrow a lot of money. And they're at the mercy of the regulators because they often run quasi-utilities. An airport, for instance. You can't give a private company complete power to raise prices, right? Because if you did that, you'd be driving airlines out of gates and, charging customers 3 times more. So the businesses that the Adanis are in are low margin businesses, even in their best days, but they're very, very capital intensive businesses. And for whatever reason, and this is not the Adani's fault, going back 100 years, infrastructure companies have always used a lot of debt. They've used a lot of debt because their view is once we build it, then we'll find a way to keep paying the interest. And you can't just blame the Adanis. Banks lend not based on earnings power or cash flows. They like to lend on big physical assets, right? Look at the real estate business. If you think about cash flows, nobody should be lending on Mumbai real estate. There isn't enough rental income in an expensive piece of real estate property. But you know what? bankers like to lend on big physical assets. Infrastructure businesses feed on that. So this is, and I don't think you can make that a crime. You can argue that this is a bad risk. You should not be borrowing so much money that your operating income is only 1.4 times your interest expense. There's not much buffer. That's a debate worth having, not just about the Adani Group, but about infrastructure businesses collectively. Now, I think that the debt is concerning as an investor, but it's concerning to me across a whole range of infrastructure companies, not just the Adani Group.
Do you see, Professor Damodaran, anything unusual, though, in the manner in which LIC invested in the Adani Group, or indeed in the manner in which State Bank of India gave loans to the Adani Group, gave them these large borrowings despite the high debt that the company had? Is that exposure to Adani a risky one?
Perhaps, no. But you know what? LIC has made a lot worse investments than the Adani Group. I'll wager, if you look at the cost at which they got those shares and what their shares are worth today, it's one of the better investments that the LIC has made over the last 20 years. For as long as the LIC has been around, it's been our investor of last resort, right? Basically, the government has forced the LIC to invest in every bad company that needs money. The Adani Group is not one of those companies. So if LICs invest in the Adani Group, I'd be interested in what motivated that investment. But by itself, you know, it's one of India's biggest institutional investors. Adani Group was one of the, in terms of market cap, one of the biggest Indian companies. Any market cap weighted fund is going to have a lot of Adani in it.
What effects, Professor, then do you see the controversy having on the Adani Group and its expansion plans going ahead? Could this be, in a sense, the end of the Adani story?
It's going to slow it down. It's going to slow it down. I mean, there's no way around it, right? It's going to slow it down because you've put a seed of doubt in. And the problem when you build a company that's complex, that's opaque, which is what the Adani Group is, and family groups in India in general are opaque groups because it's self-protection. You don't want people to see what's going on the inside. When people plant a seed of doubt, the doubt is very difficult to remove because people can't see into your firm. It's one of the consequences of building opaque organizations. In good times, people don't notice. In bad times, people assume the worst about you. So the next few weeks are going to be very telling for the Adani Group because people are going to assume the worst. Every news story is going to be parsed for, hey, are they hiding something from us? So if I were advising the group, I'd say get ahead of this. Don't hide. Don't play the patriotic card in this one. No, don't tell it's a foreigner who's come in and tried to ruin you. The best solution here is to open things up, get more transparent about everything from ownership to financials to debt, and let people see, because even if there's stuff to hide, it will not be as bad as what people assume you're hiding. So even the bad stuff, bring it out, have some credibility, let it play out. But it is going to create some punishment. It's going to slow the process down. I mean, I already read, I think today, that they were slowing down their capex, and that's exactly what you're going to expect to see in the next few months as they try to work themselves out of this problem.
So you're saying the Adani story will slow down, not be over. They have valuable assets. Now, you answered a bit of this question, but I still want to turn to it. There has been a response from the Adani Group and their supporters that this is an attack on India and the India story. Do you really believe this is an argument that should be made? Does this argument hold any water?
It's a very unhealthy argument, right? Because it basically says you can't bring up. I mean, I believe the India story, but it has seams and weak links. You know what the Adani Group does? It shines light on those weakest links. In fact, the way I describe the Adani Group is not a con, but it's a company that essentially has taken advantage of the weakest links in the Indian story and run with it. I think this is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to say, look, this is a company, it's clearly, kind of pushed the limits of these weaknesses. And if we want the India story to be a story that plays out over the next decade, we need to start working on fixing these weaknesses. Like what? I think family group companies are there's some, not all of them. Some of them are run by very professionally. They're run as if, and there's some good things that come with family group companies. But there are family group companies in India that are obsessed with control. Everything the company does is about control, more control. And I think that's going to slow India down. You cannot have that be the driver of the economy. On markets, one thing that's always troubled me about the Sensex and the kind of psychology around Indian stock markets is if you're a bull, you can make up stuff and everybody goes along. You're a hero. Look at how many Indian bulls we've celebrated through the ages, right? From Rakesh Jhunjhunwala to anybody who talks markets up, even if there's absolutely no fundamental behind it, we celebrate. If anybody brings up anything bearish about stocks, that's almost considered to be, you can't do that. I think we need to allow people to be open about companies that need to be questioned. We need to have markets where we don't treat people who are bearish as somehow bad people who need to be pushed out of the game. They have a role to play as well. And on the regulatory institutional bank side, I think we need to kind of push against inertia and indifference. We need to push for regulators who take the best actions they can given the information they have, and when they make mistakes, you don't drag them in front of Parliament and accuse them of every ulterior motive, because they are going to make mistakes. The nature of regulation, when you're doing it well, is sometimes you're going to screw up, and you got to accept that that is part of the cost of having a regulatory system that's dynamic.
My final question, Professor Damodaran, and this really is the elephant in the room. Could the Adani Group have grown in the exponential manner it has over the last decade without its political connections, networks, especially to the Modi government? And do you believe this in itself needs to be investigated as part of some joint parliamentary committee or parliament, or at least some kind of oversight over how does one company seem to get so many projects?
What are they going to investigate? Of course, we know there's a connection. Of course, connections pay off in infrastructure. But here's the reason I think you can't get very far. Nobody wants to be in the infrastructure business. I come to India only once every 6 months or once every year, and we all know that India's biggest, weakest link is its infrastructure. I flew into Chennai airport that stayed under construction for a decade. And even after it was constructed, you had no idea what the construction was leading to or where it was going. The Adanis have entered a business where nobody wants to be. So if you tell me there are 15 people bidding for these airports and somehow, this was a bad bid and was picked, I'd like to see the evidence. I don't think it's likely. This is a business where there are very few competent players in India. And one of the tragedies that I see coming out of this is you might take a player I think there's a pathway. I don't even know why the Adanis went public, to be quite honest. I think they could have stayed private. Clearly they do something right in the infrastructure business. But I think this is what happens. An ambition and control kind of come together and you tend to overreach. So you can have I am not a great believer that parliamentary investigations lead anywhere, because politics means you dig in your heels. You basically, your side is right, the other side is wrong. They cast more noise than light on the process. So I'm sure there will be an investigation. It's not in your control or my control. There'll be a group of people. These will be congressmen who have no idea what questions they're asking about infrastructure. And they will be given answers that they don't quite understand. And each of them will get up and make a speech on their own based on their side of the. But I think that you really don't need an investigation. Of course, they had political connections. Did it play a role in how quickly they grow? Absolutely. We all know it. We knew it before the Hindenburg report came out. So this has never been a secret. So what's the investigation going to prove? Unless there's something that was underhanded that happened, and I think that's worth exploring, it is what it is.
Which is why I say, in conclusion, if their corners were cut, if there is something underhand, whether it is regulators, whether it is these family-owned companies, Professor Damodaran, especially those in the infrastructure sector with political connections, do you believe it's time now that this is providing a wake-up call? And unless the system plugs in the loopholes, we'll have more such Adani-like cases emerging. Rather than sort of demonize only an individual, this system needs to be completely overhauled. Would you agree?
Exactly. I agree entirely, right? This is not about a company. This is about an India that still has legacy problems that go back not 10 years, not 20 years, but hundreds of years, right? A legacy problem where social networks are greater than financial networks. Bankers lend based on who they know, and that system is not going to go away just because we decide it wants to go away. So I think it's incremental. It's a process. I think the India of today is much better than the India I left 45 years ago in terms of those networks and being able to break into the business. And I think we need to recognize how far India has come rather than complain about how far behind it is, because both of those statements are true. And you can't abandon one without bringing in the other. So I think it is an opportunity. It's a chance for India to take a look at how it can be better. And, I think that the India story has legs as long as India doesn't cut its own legs off. And there's a history of doing that before where I've seen over the last 40 years, the India story is coming. And then all of a sudden, 3 years later, you just basically, something happens, something catastrophic, where India self-inflicts enough wounds that it goes back to the start of the race. I hope that doesn't happen this time, that this doesn't become another political football that gets kicked around where you blame people on both sides. And that's part of the reason I don't want to have anything to do with the political side of this debate because it's going to be toxic. But I think there is a debate about how do we make India a better economy? How do we create an environment where we have more businesses? And most of all, how do we create an environment where our infrastructure is going to get built? Because sure as heck, the government is not going to do it. They don't have the money. So we need private companies to do it. And many of them are going to do what the Adanis did, borrow a ton of money, borrow to the hilt because that's what they've been taught as a way of funding these businesses. So I think it's an opportunity. I just hope we view it as such rather than a threat from outside forces that has to be stopped at any cost.
Okay, Professor Damodaran, your views, of course, will gather a lot of attention, but you help to cut through some of the political clutter, and it's always good to talk to someone who's been tracking valuations and indeed finances of businesses for years. Thanks very much for joining me there from New York.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Okay, that was the expert view, but there is the politics, and that's what we are now turning to, because Congress MP Rahul Gandhi today opened fire on the Adani episode in Parliament, targeting Prime Minister Modi. He accused the Prime Minister of giving undue benefits to Gautam Adani. Take a look at Rahul's attack on the Adanis and the opposition response.
प्रधानमंत्री जी, आपकी फॉरेन ट्रिप्स पे अदानी जी और आप कितनी बार एक साथ गए? Adani ji, how many times did you travel together with Adani ji? First question. How many times did Adani ji join you later on a visit? Yeah. How many times did Adani ji travel to a country immediately after you did? Third question. And in how many of these countries after you visited did Adani ji get a contract? Fourth question. Also an important question, जरूरी सवाल. अदानी जी ने बीजेपी को पिछले 20 साल में कितने पैसे दिए हैं? इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड्स में कितना पैसा दिया है? Coming together is a beginning. Keeping together is progress. Working together is success. Adani ji and Narendra Modi ji, thank you. अगर कोई एयरपोर्ट बिजनेस में नहीं था तो वो इन एयरपोर्ट्स को ले नहीं सकता था. इस रूल को हिंदुस्तान की सरकार ने बदला, रूल बदला गया और अदानी जी को 6 एयरपोर्ट्स दिए गए. आफ्टर दैट इंडियाज मोस्ट स्ट्रेटेजिक प्रॉफिटेबल एयरपोर्ट मुंबई एयरपोर्ट was taken away by GVK, hijacked by using the agencies. The agencies को CBI, ED का प्रयोग कर GVK पर दबाव डालकर हिंदुस्तान की सरकार ने उस एयरपोर्ट को अदानी जी के हाथों में कर दिया। प्रधानमंत्री जी ऑस्ट्रेलिया जाते हैं और जादू से स्टेट बैंक ऑफ इंडिया $1 बिलियन लोन अदानी जी को बांग्लादेश जाते हैं। मोदी जी की पहली ट्रिप होती है बांग्लादेश में, वहां पे बांग्लादेश को इलेक्ट्रिसिटी बेचने का डिसीजन लिया जाता है। कुछ ही दिन बाद बांग्लादेश पावर डेवलपमेंट बोर्ड 25 साल का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट अदानी जी के साथ साइन कर देता है। 1500 मेगावाट इलेक्ट्रिसिटी का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट अदानी जी। जून 2022 में चेयरमैन ऑफ श्रीलंका सिलोन इलेक्ट्रिसिटी बोर्ड MMC Fernando informed a parliamentary committee in Sri Lanka in open hearing that he was told by President Rajapaksa that PM Modi pressured him to give the wind power project directly to Mr. Adani. कुछ दिन पहले ये हिंडनबर्ग रिपोर्ट आई, उसमें लिखा था कि अदानी जी की हिंदुस्तान के बाहर शेल कंपनीज हैं। ये जो शेल कंपनीज हैं, सबसे पहला सवाल है ये हैं किसकी? ये किसकी है मॉरिशस में जो शेल कंपनीज हैं? और ये जो हजारों करोड़ रुपया ये शेल कंपनीज हिंदुस्तान में भेज रही हैं, ये किसका पैसा है? और क्या ये काम अदानी जी फ्री में कर रहे हैं? शेल कंपनीज हैं, इनके बारे में हिंदुस्तान की सरकार ने कोई सवाल नहीं उठाए कि ये कौन लोग हैं, ये किनकी कंपनीज हैं? ये स्ट्रेटेजिक मामला है, पोर्ट्स का मामला है, एयरपोर्ट्स का मामला है, डिफेंस का मामला है, और जो कंपनी इन स्ट्रेटेजिक एरियाज में काम कर रही है उनके बारे में आपको मालूम ही नहीं। ये नेशनल सिक्योरिटी का मुद्दा है, आपको मालूम ही नहीं कि ये शेल कंपनीज किसकी हैं, कितना पैसा आ रहा है, किसका पैसा आ रहा है।
Now, those were Rahul's attacks or punches. BJP's Nishikant Dubey, among others, countered Rahul's attack. Mahua Moitra, though, backed the Congress leader. Listen in.
कांग्रेस पार्टी और कांग्रेस पार्टी की नीतियां केवल टाटा, बिरला, अंबानी इसको जो है मदद करने के लिए है। आपने इसके ऊपर क्या एक्शन लिया? इसके बाद सर इन्होंने कई एक चीजें कही, श्रीलंका की बात कही। मैं कागज लेकर आया हूं सर कि श्रीलंका का ये हो गया, ये मैं स्टेटमेंट लेकर आया हूं राजपक्षा जी का, और जो वायर है सर जो भारतीय जनता पार्टी के खिलाफ हमेशा लिखते रहती है, उसका आर्टिकल लेकर मैं आया हूं। ये कह रहा है कि भारत सरकार ने, और मैं कांग्रेस पार्टी को चैलेंज करता हूं कि वायर की स्टोरी यदि गलत है, यदि श्रीलंका के राष्ट्रपति की स्टोरी गलत है, तो आप जो सजा देना चाहेंगे दे दें, नहीं तो पूरी कांग्रेस पार्टी को माफी मांगनी चाहिए, क्योंकि यह देश का सवाल है। दूसरा सर ऑस्ट्रेलिया की बात हुई कि ऑस्ट्रेलिया में प्रधानमंत्री जी ने फायदा पहुंचाया। मैं आपको बता रहा हूं कि क्या परेशानी है सर। कांग्रेस पार्टी चोरी करती है, चोरी और सीना चोरी का यदि उदाहरण देखना हो तो इस कांग्रेस पार्टी से देखिए। यह ऑस्ट्रेलिया का है सर। अगस्त 4, 2010 क्या हमारी सरकार थी? हमने उनको पैसा दिया, हमने उनका बिजनेस कराया। 2010 में ऑस्ट्रेलिया को माइंस, अडानी को ऑस्ट्रेलिया में माइंस मिला, इस सरकार ने दिया सर, इसने मदद किया, मनमोहन सिंह जी की सरकार ने मदद किया। और यदि हिम्मत है तो रिट्रैक्ट करें।
Honorable Prime Minister, this man Mr. A has topi penaued you. He travels with you on your delegations. He meets heads of states on visits to India. He portrays that India is the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister is him. He makes it appear to the world that he is the remote control behind the Prime Minister, and by obliging him, will be obliging the Prime Minister.
We've heard all the sides of the story. Let's therefore then go to our guest tonight. Manikam Tagore, Congress MP, joins me. Sanju Verma, the BJP spokesperson, will join me in a moment. But first you, Manikam Tagore, let's get it very clear. Rahul Gandhi is claiming proximity between Prime Minister Modi and Gautam Adani. The BJP's response, among other things, is that there are several states where Mr. Adani has invested. In Rajasthan, Congress ruled. Chhattisgarh, Congress ruled. Even the Adani project in Australia, Nishikant Dubey pointed out, the first clearances came in 2010. Kamal Nath cleared a project in Madhya Pradesh 1 week before stepping down. So why single out Prime Minister Modi?
Thank you, Rajiv. The main question is that we are not against any business houses or business people. We want a level playing field and we want new business people to emerge in India. That's very clear for Congress party. We are not supporting a crony system or one business houses or two business houses to rule across India. We don't want to make Indian economy a Latin American economy or a Russian model economy. We want India to be a competitive economy where everybody has a say about it. Let us come to the point of 2014. 2014, Mr. Adani's world ranking, in the ranking he was 609. 2014, he was 609 among the richest people in the world. In 2023, January, Mr. Adani is number 2 among the richest people. How that from 609 to second place, actually then for whom it has come? Amartikal, for whom it has come? Our thing is that Amartikal
Are you saying there is no crony? Are you saying there is no cronyism when Adani invests in Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh? There is cronyism when the centre intervenes on his behalf. That's what you're saying. Am I correct?
Any state government, it may be Rajasthan or any Congress ruled state in Himachal, there should not be if somebody wants to invest in your state, everybody will welcome. But don't bulldoze the thing. Don't hand over your wealth, your resources to them to be monopolized. That is the story.
So you're saying what you're against is
that from 609.
Yes, you're saying the monopolies have enriched Mr. Adani, and it has happened in the last 8 years. Now let's come to specifics, Sanju Verma. And specifics were put out by Rahul Gandhi. For example, GVK. The manner in which India's most lucrative airport was handed over from GVK to Adani. On the July 2, 2020, CBI registered an FIR against the GVK owners. July 18, 2020, ED raids. August 31st, GVK airport handed over to Adani. Same thing with a port in Andhra Pradesh, Krishnapatnam port. There were IT raids on the owners. Suddenly, a year or two later, Adani buys those ports. It appears someone is benefiting Adani. According to Rahul Gandhi, agencies have been used, the system has been misused to promote Adani's business interests. Your response?
Thank you, Rajdeep. Rajdeep,
I think it's very nice you've asked me for specifics because specifics leave no room for obfuscation.
Yes.
I have this to say. Point number one, and very quickly. When did Adani get license for his commodity trading business? It was in 1988 when Amar Singh Chaudhary of the Congress was the Chief Minister of Gujarat and Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister. In 1993, when Narasimha Rao of the Congress was the Prime Minister, Adani got the authority to set up his first flagship company called Adani Enterprises, which is the biggest company.
That's what about, please answer my question, ma'am. I asked you specific question. GVK and the Krishnapatnam port, ED raids, IT raids, the company gives it to the Adanis.
I heard you. Rajdeep, let's not have a tutu.
No, I want a specific answer. I want a specific answer.
I am giving you a specific answer, but you will have to be slightly patient. Thank you. Now let me take the bull by its horns. What about the Mumbai airport? When was the Mumbai airport contract taken away from GVK and given to Adani?
Yes.
Now, Rajdeep, please listen very carefully. This happened in July 2021. Who was in power in July 2021 in the center? We all know it is Prime Minister Modi's Sarkar.
Yes.
But in Maharashtra, it was the Maha Vikas Agadi, where Rahul Gandhi's Congress, Uddhav Thackeray's
Ma'am,
party
don't mislead
and
the
NCP
audience.
were-
Airports
were
Authority
in
of India has
partnership.
nothing to do with the Maharashtra government. Please
Can
do
I
not
please
mislead
finish,
the
Rajdeep
audience.
Sardesai?
No, madam, you will
Can
not
I please
mislead the
finish?
audience today.
No,
I
will
asked
tell
you a
why-
specific
I will tell
question.
you why
A
not
company is
involved.
raided which
Can I
holds
please
India's
finish?
most lucrative airport.
Can I
How
please
did it go to
finish,
the Adanis?
Rajdeep? Can I please finish?
You must answer
Can
the
I
question.
please finish?
Don't mislead.
I will tell you why. I will tell you why Maharashtra is involved. You know, Rajdeep, I did not want to make this nasty. But I think as a journalist, you need to educate yourself how an airport project is given. And listen now, I challenge you to challenge me. It is not just the central government. The government of Maharashtra has to give an approval when a contract is transferred from one private entity to another, and CIDCO, City Industrial Development Authority of Maharashtra, also had to give it approval. CIDCO reported into whom? CIDCO reported into Uddhav Thackeray. क्या राजदीप सरदेसाई ने उद्धव ठाकरे से सवाल पूछे? नो. उद्धव
पूछेंगे.
ठाकरे was in alliance with who? Rahul Gandhi. क्या राजदीप सरदेसाई ने राहुल गांधी से सवाल पूछे? No. Now I have exposed you. The transfer from GVK to Adani happened because Uddhav Thackeray agreed, Sharad Pawar agreed, Rahul Gandhi agreed, and Modi Sarkar also agreed.
Okay. Can I then turn to the next question which has been raised by Manikam Tagore, ma'am? He says that how is it that in 8 years, someone's wealth increases exponentially? The argument that Rahul Gandhi makes is that the Prime Minister has conferred undue benefits. The public institutions have been very generous with the Adani Group despite their high debt, that Mr. Adani has been a constant companion at times of the Prime Minister to different countries, and those countries have then signed lucrative contracts with the Adani Group. Your response?
Rajdeep, I exposed you on the GVK contract.
No, you've not
And I
exposed
showed
me.
you how Uddhav Thackeray and Rahul Gandhi were responsible. Now let me answer your question very specifically on how Adani's wealth increased. You know, he was ranked at some 609 or 621. He became the third richest. I want to tell something to the Congress again, and Rajdeep, for your benefit also. What was the Adani stock market price? Adani stock market price in 2004 when the Congress came to power was 24 rupees. In 2014, when the Modi government came to power, the stock price was 497, which means in the 10 years of UPA, Adani's stock price went up by 1,971%. Last December 2022, Adani stock hit a high of 4189.55. Now from 497, in 9 years, it became 4189.55, which is a 743% increase.
Yes.
743% increase under the Modi government.
Which as our
Almost
business
a
expert has
2000%
said,
increase under the Congress.
which as our business expert has
Almost a
said,
2000%
suggests
increase
overvaluation.
under the Congress.
This was market capitalization to get credit worthiness.
Yes, market
Why are you telling me?
capitalization
Are you
determines
telling
your
me
wealth.
that at no stage in the last 8 years?
Market capitalization determines your wealth. Please don't teach me the basics of finance.
I asked you a simple
Market
question.
capitalization determines the wealth rankings. Rajdeep
Yes,
Sardesai.
but the bottom line of the company, they according
not
to
teach me finance.
according to business
I'm an
experts, the
Asian
bottom line of the
financial
company
analyst.
did not justify such high valuations. Anyway, it's not me versus you. I'm trying to get information and answers.
No, because I'm showing you the mirror.
You're
Market capitalization determines the ranking.
Madam, you are showing me the mirror. Thank you very much. But Manikam Tagore,
2000% jump in Adani's stock price under Congress. Rajdeep Sardesai has not even bothered to ask one question.
okay, can I?
743% increase under Narendra Modi, but you go ballistic.
Okay, let me ask you a specific question now, Manikam Tagore. This issue, is it that Rahul Gandhi is going to provide us with a smoking gun that goes beyond? At the moment, he is making insinuations, allegations, whether it's the GVK allegation. Now we need proof that actually some of those, you have no documents. Rahul Gandhi today said in Parliament, I will provide you documentary evidence. Are we going to get documentary evidence, or is this a perceptional battle being fought to create a narrative?
No, we have to understand it. Mr. Gandhi was speaking in the floor of the Parliament, and Parliament is asking specific questions to the Prime Minister. Who else we should have the questions to be placed to the Prime Minister? There should be investigation. Therefore, only we are asking for a JPC. Let us have a JPC. There will be investigation, and let us call the officers. Let them give the documents. Everything will be there. What is the problem? Is that there is the Adani scandal is bigger than what we are thinking. Therefore, let us be very clear that today the opposition parties strategically use this occasion of the president, thanking for the presidential address in a very right way, and we are able to, Mr. Gandhi led it from the front, and the ruling party was.
I've run out of time,
clueless.
Professor Tagore. I'm sorry, I've run completely out of time.
Rajdeep,
Okay, no,
10
I've run out
seconds.
of time. I appreciate both of you joining us. I wish I had more time. We'll have many, but this issue is not going anywhere. Sanju Verma, you and I will be back again on another day. Let's take a break. On the other side, just a little bit more. Also, we'll tell you why this Friday we are turning to Tripura in a moment.
A corporate museum called The Journey has got everyone talking. This museum showcases the origins of the DS Group, its struggling era, initial phase of establishment, the downfall followed by rejuvenation of family members, revival of business, and reincarnation of the belief of the founder, Sri Satyapalji. It's actually the art of storytelling, which involves a wide range of media and multimedia tools backed by context-driven, strong narrative that has made the outcome truly an undulating one. It took 2 years for this museum to be completed.
I took over the business and I used to see the files of my father, the records and other things. So I came to know that what was the hard work he put in. And in 50s and 60s, where there was no brand consciousness, he used to work hard. We got those handmade designs and other things. Creating brand where trademark and branding was not known to anybody. So then we started collecting them, and there were huge bundles of papers and other things. So we started developing a biography on him.
Okay.
So in 2014 we launched his biography, and वो इतना डाटा कलेक्ट करते करते हमारे को मतलब ये लगा कि अब हमारे को ये म्यूज़ियम के लायक सामान है, तो फिर हमने म्यूज़ियम पे काम करना शुरू करा. And so that from my grandfather's time to father and the next generation and whatever development is going on, all is depicted in the museum.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
Okay, that's it on the show tonight. I'm going to leave you with what we have on Friday night. Elections on My Plate is back, this time from the election-bound state of Tripura. Do watch that. Stay well, stay safe. Good night, Shubhratri. Jai Hind, Namaskar. Try some of the puri sabzi. This is going to be my political breakfast. How many seats are you out of 60?
I always say above 50.
The mood of Tripura is against the BJP.
और 5 साल देखना है क्या होता है. There is no democracy at all.
Padut has decided to give me extra sticky rice. PK Chai Tripura Wali, great Indian tradition.
The naval variant of the indigenous light combat aircraft on board INS Vikrant. Watch these images, the maiden landing of the fixed-wing fighter on the carrier, which is as part of operationalizing it, which was also followed by a MiG-29K. And this truly demonstrates India's capabilities to design, development, construct and operate indigenous aircraft carrier with the indigenous fighter aircraft. Take a look.
देश के पहले स्वदेशी विमान वाहक युद्धपोत आईएनएस विक्रांत पर देश का पहला स्वदेशी लड़ाकू विमान एलसीए तेजस उतरा है. इस पर बात करने के लिए हमारे साथ वाइस एडमिरल एसएम घुरमड़े सर हैं. आपसे जानना चाहूंगा कितनी बड़ी घटना है खासतौर से मेक इन इंडिया को लेकर.
ये हमारे देश के लिए एक ऐतिहासिक क्षण है और अत्यंत गर्व की बात है कि जो हमारे आत्मनिर्भरता का विजन है उसको हमने आज साकार किया है, क्योंकि देश का जो स्वदेशी जहाज है एलसीए नेवी और ये प्रोटोटाइप जहाज है उसको आज इंडिजिनस एयरक्राफ्ट कैरियर पे लैंड करवाया है. ये एक महत्वपूर्ण उपलब्धि है जो हमारे इंडियन नेवल पायलट्स ने की है, क्योंकि आज हम एक इंडिजिनसली डिज़ाइंड डेवलप्ड कैरियर पे हम एक इंडिजिनसली डिज़ाइंड एंड डेवलप्ड एयरक्राफ्ट लैंड किया है. तो ये बहुत ही बड़ी उपलब्धि है.
Shah Rukh Khan's Pathaan has been rocking at the movie theatres. It is in fact being touted as the best action movie of recent times. But is it true? What does the Tech Today community think about it? Are the tech sequences worth watching the movie in the movie theatre, or will the Tech Today community wait to watch it on OTT? Let's try and find out. Where will it be, in the cinema theatre or on OTT?
Cinemas. SRK in cinemas.
Movie theatre. OTT.
Will you be watching it in an IMAX or in a regular theatre?
IMAX for sure. Yeah, that is really have a great VFX, and even John Abraham also, I like him, and Shah Rukh Khan especially.
I have heard a lot about it, how it has a parallel from a Christopher Nolan ka movie, and the technologies that they've used is same, so I want to explore that.
Not interested in watching in a movie theatre.
Is there any reason why you're averse to going to a movie theatre?
I feel more relaxed watching it at home.
Yes, if it releases in Amazon or Netflix, otherwise not.
Actually, we went to the cinema hall yesterday. I almost wanted to watch it, but my wife said we'll watch it on OTT.
The Assam government's crackdown on child marriages is leading to unforeseen incidents. A young girl allegedly died by suicide in Assam's Kachhar district after her wedding was called off by her parents in view of the ongoing drive. The victim's family claims she was in love with the groom and was upset with the turn of events.
এটা তো খুশি করতে করছে বিয়া করতে না ওই যে তাই ফাঁসি লাগে মূল্য যেখানে মূল্য এটা তো তো তাই মানে পুলিশের দরকার করে দিয়ে লাগে নি তাই মনে কোনটা প্ল্যান করে তো বিয়া তো হইতো না বা অনলাইনে যাইতাও পারতা না
In another incident, a 23-year-old woman threatened to take her life as the police arrested her husband and father in a child marriage case. The woman collapsed when the police took the suspects to court, ignoring her protests. In South Assam, a mother of two allegedly died by suicide, fearing her father would be arrested. The crackdown on child marriages in Assam has been on for 4 days now. The police have arrested over 2,200 people and filed more than 4,000 cases. The statewide drive, announced by Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma, began on Friday.
বৰ্তমান 4,074টা কেছ ৰেজিষ্টাৰ কৰিছিলোঁ। কিছুমান ব্যক্তি এনেকুৱা আছে যি হয়তো বিবাহত আবদ্ধ হোৱা ব্যক্তিসকলৰ পিতৃ মাতৃ তেওঁলোকলৈকে চৰকাৰে নোটিছ দিব, তেওঁলোকক পঞ্চায়তে গ্ৰেপ্তাৰ কৰা নহ'ব।
The crackdown has triggered protests in different parts of the state by impacted parties. Critics of the government allege the drive is to target the Muslim community. The Himanta Biswa Sarma government has called it a public health measure to check the high teenage pregnancy rate in the state. With Afrida Hussain in Assam, Bureau Report, India Today.
Craving a meal right out of your kitchen's non-stick pan is normal. But what if we tell you that even one meal is toxic? Want to know why? We tell you. Your favorite kitchenware non-stick pan comes with a Teflon coating. What it does is, it makes cleaning easier, requires minimum oil for cooking, and finally prepares the food faster. So where's the problem? It's the same Teflon that breaks down after a while and then reaches your table with the food you served, and the chemicals used for the coating can cause chronic diseases like cancer. So when do we know it's time to say goodbye to your smooth and chic cookingware? Not all discoloration is bad. It's caused by food buildup over time. Some light discoloration isn't a big deal, but once it's dark, it could mean the non-stick coating has been damaged. At that point, it's time to replace that pan. Scratches are definitely a deal breaker in older pans. Even in the newer pans, Teflon that contains a hazardous man-made chemical called PFOA has been found in commonly used brands in India. PFOAs are proven to contain cancer-causing chemicals, and now Teflon is required to be manufactured without these dangerous compounds. If you see scratches, that means the non-stick Teflon surface has been compromised and the chemicals could be flaking off into your food. Not healthy at all. With regular usage of any utensil, it gets warped and things are no different with non-stick pans. The risk of Teflon layer breaking down too increases, so to make sure your food is safe, you may just want to play it safe and chuck the warped pans. Your easy to cook, easy to clean pan is not there to last forever. And to make sure it isn't adding any harmful chemicals to your food, ensure that you discard it after at least 3 to 5 years of usage to keep the damaged non-stick pan from releasing over 2 million of micro and nanoplastics, as several studies suggested. With Simranjeet Kaur Renu, Bureau Report, India Today.
Javed Miandad's bluster on India-Pak cricket. Miandad says India can go to hell.
तो पहले भी कहते थे नहीं यार तो भाड़ में जाए, हमें कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, हमें हमारी क्रिकेट मिल रही है। राइट, ये आईसीसी का काम है। अगर ये चीज अगर आईसीसी कंट्रोल नहीं कर सकती तो फिर गवर्निंग बॉडी का कोई काम नहीं आईसीसी का।
Jay Shah makes it clear India will not travel to Pakistan for Asia Cup. India wants the Asia Cup at a safe, neutral venue. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar makes India's stance on Pak terror and cricket very clear.
सरकार तो सोचती रहती है अब, क्योंकि टूर्नामेंट आते रहते हैं और आप तो हमारा अभी तक तो आपको पता है कि हमारी सोच क्या है, तो देखते हैं आगे.
Has Pak terror been clean bowled by India's stance? That's our top focus on India First. भाड़ में जाए India rants former Pakistani cricketer Javed Miandad. The Asian Cricket Council President and BCCI Secretary Jay Shah had made it very clear Team India will not travel to Pakistan for the Asia Cup. Now this is a huge slap on the face of the terror state, Pakistan, but a necessary step. Even Pakistani cricketers, take Babar Azam for example or Shahid Afridi, they are not safe. They had to be rushed to safety after a blast at the Quetta police lines just 2 days ago. But when Javed Miandad rants that Pakistan does not need India's support, is he speaking the truth or is Dawood Ibrahim Kaskar's Samdhi lying through his teeth? Let's find out.
The storm over the venue for the 2023 Asia Cup is intensifying with each passing day. Until now, the war of words was being fought between the BCCI and the PCB, but now former cricketers have also entered the ring. India's stance is clear. The Indian players will not be travelling to Pakistan for the Asia Cup, but now Pakistan's Javed Miandad has taken the row to the next level with his controversial remarks. Miandad attacked the Indian board and the players at a public event by saying that India can go to hell and that the players fear losing in Pakistan.
तो पहले भी कहते थे नहीं यार तो भाड़ में जाए, हमें कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, हमें हमारी क्रिकेट मिल रही है। राइट, ये आईसीसी का काम है। अगर ये चीज अगर आईसीसी कंट्रोल नहीं कर सकती तो फिर गवर्निंग बॉडी का कोई काम नहीं आईसीसी का। राइट, आईसीसी को चाहिए कि रूल फॉर सारी कंट्री के लिए एक होना चाहिए। अगर ऐसी टीमें नहीं आती जितनी भी स्ट्रांग हो, आप उसको बात करें उसका, तो इंडिया होगा अपने लिए होगा, हमारे लिए या दुनिया के लिए नहीं है, पाकिस्तान के लिए नहीं है। आओ खेलो, खेलते क्यों नहीं है, भागते, उनकी मुसीबत हो जाती है जब भागते तो।
His unsavory comments were perfectly shut out by former India pacer Venkatesh Prasad, who cheekily said that India are refusing to go to hell. The boards have been at loggerheads ever since Jay Shah vehemently ruled out India's participation in the Asia Cup if Pakistan were the hosts. Ramiz Raja, the PCB chief back then, was visibly frustrated and responded by saying that Pakistan too will not travel to India for this year's World Cup.
स्टांस भट्टी साहब ये है कि हमें उन्होंने एशिया कप दिया होस्ट करने को, एसीसी ने दिया, उसके बाद इंडिया कहता है हम नहीं आएंगे, तो मैं मान सकता हूँ कि चले उनको पॉलिटिकल उनकी है एक फाइन नहीं आए, अगर एशिया कप हमारे से लेके न्यूट्रल वेन्यू पे जाना ये नहीं होने वाला। तो इसके बाद जो भी हम करेंगे वो उसके हिसाब से करेंगे अपनी जो भी हमारी स्ट्रेटजी हो।
And that sentiment prevails in some circles of the Pakistan Cricket Board, as another official suggested the same just 2 weeks back. On his YouTube channel, Indian spinner Ravichandran Ashwin said that it won't be possible for Pakistan to skip the World Cup. For now, there is no decision on whether or not the Asia Cup will be moved out of Pakistan, but sources suggest that Jay Shah's word will outweigh the hopes